Well, it's time now for a look at today's newspapers with Kamali.
Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half an hour, we'll see what's making headlines with the barrister and futurist Andrew Eborn and the writer and broadcaster Amy Nicole-Turner. So let's take a look at what's on some of the front pages. King of Peace, says the Daily Mirror, after the monarch called for tolerance and respect between faiths in his Christmas message. The Daily Mail leads with a similar headline, the King's Christmas plea for peace. The Sun leads with all is forgiven, as Sarah Ferguson makes her first appearance at the royal family's Christmas Day service in decades. The Daily Express claims experts are warning the Bank of England need to cut interest rates quickly to kickstart the economy. According to The Times, the Labour Party are plotting an alternative to the Conservative Rwanda asylum plan, while the Daily Telegraph is critical of what it's calling a postcode lottery for the availability of menopause drugs. The Guardian has an exclusive saying government policy to deal with childhood obesity is leading to a child health time bomb. And the Daily Star focused their front page on rats who've been eating cars in a record rise in critter damage. And to remind you, by scanning the QR code you see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch along with us. So we're joined by Andrew Eborn and Amy Nicole-Turner. Andrew, Amy, thank you very much for being with us. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Did you have a great day?
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Every day's Christmas for us.
And everyone ate well and was merry.
All the time.
And now we're going to go
so much I can't move out this dress anymore.
Both fantastic. Let's crack straight on and we'll go with the Daily Mirror. We're going to go to the inside page to start with this, and this is all about the King's Christmas message.
Fantastic. A time to unite, and what a great message it was too. What I love is that families gathering around the television at Christmas time. That's what you want. 3 o'clock, everybody was around there hoping for this message of hope, and that's what he delivered. And he talked about this sort of divided age that we live in with war raging all over the place. And it is absolutely a time to unite. He also touched on not just the plea for peace as war rages, but he hails the volunteers and climate change fight as well. And there are a few extra royals who we haven't seen for a little while who joined in as well with the service at Sandringham.
Was it Meghan?
Well, it could have been.
Oh, it wasn't Meghan, was it?
No,
we'll get on to that,
those guys are in Montecito or wherever they are.
Andrew, you are the eternal optimist.
Okay.
You really are, because I saw things a bit differently, actually. So Charles credited our imaginative ways of caring for each other, which I thought was a very festive and creative way of talking about the cost of living crisis. Now, it's all very well a monarch in his castle talking about the imaginative ways we look after each other, but we need to remember that this Christmas, 500,000 kids didn't have a bed. I don't like that imaginative way. I think that's too much, actually. 1 in 7 kids didn't have a present this morning. So I hope he'll use a bit more of this soft power to prod the politicians.
And he did also say...
They can take notice of these statistics rather than just coming out with these fluffy, pretty words, which are all well and good, but they're not helping these kids.
And you're absolutely right. You have to recognise that at this time of year, while we're all having lots of fun, there's the complete antithesis where people are having misery. And it can be an incredibly lonely time. But he does talk... it was a message of hope. And I don't think he did forget that. And to be fair to him, he turned around and said, look, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. He was talking about that
message. But the question is whether or not that message is getting through. And, you know, you talk about it being a time for us all to kind of sit around the television and watch it. I wonder how important that message is in 2023 right now.
I think that if you know you're living through an era with the greatest inequality since the Victorian era, then some fluffy words of a king is not really going to do much to give you much faith. I know that's grinchy, isn't it?
No, it's not grinchy. No, but it's important to call it out. I think you have to say that sort of side. But also, what I do love, and the reason about uniting people around a television set, is what happens now is people are divided. They're all in their own screens. You tend not to have those water cooler moments where you will just all watch one particular television programme. So I do think from that point of view, those who have a television set, you can unite on that sort of basis. But it is absolutely right, Amy, to call out the other side as well.
I think something important that he did address was his call for peace. So he joined Justin Welby and the Archbishop, the Pope, in saying, you know, this situation, the conflicts across the world, we're in the greatest time of conflict, but juxtaposed with what Netanyahu said today, who, you know, vowing to intensify the campaign in the Middle East. And I think something that everyone can agree with is that That's not the approach. This military solution that he's gunning for is never going to work. We need politics, we need diplomacy. So I think all of the sentiments throughout all the Christmas speeches from all of the leaders have been just find a solution that doesn't involve all this violence that we're seeing.
And as a solution for not days, not months, but years, and that's what everybody's pushing.
And surely history has taught us that no amount of military force ever solves anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the front of the Mail, and their headline, of course, is about the King's speech. But I do want to have a quick conversation with you about the royals who turned up at Sandringham. And we saw, as we've been saying, the first time in, Mel says, 32 years.
It is 32 years, yes. Amazing. I have to say, however, I mean, it's glorious that she was there, 32 years, it's all about United, and it does beg the question about his other son and Meghan and so on and so forth. But the picture, I have to say, that the Mail picked of Fergie, I mean, she looks like she's almost falling over. And
Such a mean picture.
It is. It's very strange that they've decided to do this, you know.
They've been doing this her whole life.
Precisely,
She's
but there's
been
a whole new
living
generation
this.
who don't really know who Fergie is and how they're going to try and...
And this is the first time they see Fergie. It's 32, so anybody who's under the age of 32...
Right.
But you know, Fergie can teach all the royals a lesson that you can do some seriously embarrassing stuff and then get welcomed back into the fold. Things like Weight Watchers campaigns, children's books. Do you remember all those?
Oh, she did Budgie the helicopter. That wasn't embarrassing.
Budgie the helicopter.
Budgie the helicopter was very good.
Great for the kids.
But she was also offered, because there were financial difficulties and so on and so forth, she's also apparently been offered to go into Celebrity Big Brother. $500,000. A third of what Nigel apparently got.
But don't you think it shows people are like, oh, Meghan's hanging her dirty laundry out. Well, Fergie did that, and then 10 times again.
And then came back and
exactly.
So, look, is that then is the door opening then to Harry and Meghan to come back?
I think it would be open. I think that's the message here.
Any father would want to be reunited with his child if he could be, and I'm sure it's probably devastating for both sides, to be fair. And it's been a miserable year, I think, for both sides. And I'm probably one of the few people in the world who speaks up for Harry, because I think it's good to look at some of the positive things and the things he does, like Invictus Games and so on and so forth. But there have been all sorts of fights with the press. There's been fights with his father, more and more revelations in all these different books, from Scooby-Doo to, you know, the other...
That's not his name.
I know. The end game and all that sort of stuff. I think we need to look at this sort of stuff. We're in a fractured society where give peace a chance. Let's make sure we get reunited. But reaching out, a father and a son would be a great reunion.
You are an optimist. I like it.
He really
Christmas Day.
He really
Beautiful.
is.
All right. Well, let's talk about optimism. And the government are very optimistic they're going to get a flight off to Rwanda. But the Labour Party plan something else. We're going to skip over this one, actually, go straight to the front of the Times. Let's have a look at that if we can. The Times suggesting the Labour Party have got an alternative Rwanda asylum plan. Interesting reporting. Just take us through what it is.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I went to the World Travel Market fairly recently, where Rwanda had a stand, of all places, as indeed did Wuhan. So they were showing off all the bits and pieces. What they're saying is they're going to have a completely different scheme, which is they're going to say it's going to be legally watertight. Well, I think that's what everybody's trying to do. And basically, he's going to clarify his vision, Starmer, next week. But it's actually David Blunkett, all the way back in the 2000s, who prepared... basically, he was talking about Tanzania to basically process people.
But can I say...
It's going to continue. That's the thing about this.
But no, it's so different to the Rwanda idea. The idea isn't that you're processed and you live in another country. It's that it's to stop people crossing the channel. So if you can process people in a country nearer to where they're leaving, and then their fate is determined there, it means they don't have to make that journey across the channel. It doesn't mean they're going to stay in that country, and it doesn't mean we're going to give the country £300 million and then never actually do it.
260 or something, isn't it? I mean...
Approaching £300 million.
But the point of it, as the article tells us, is that the Labour Party needs to try and start appearing tough on immigration.
Because that's the thing, election looming very soon, the whole thing about Keir Starmer, he's weak on immigration, that they're trying to counteract that. But they always have to turn around and say, look, what is the plan? The devil is in the detail.
But they're being careful to be cost-effective and realistic about a proposal that isn't a pie in the sky. We're going to take off 200 people to Rwanda, bring 200 people back, and then what? Well, this sounds like it could have... The idea that Blair originally had about Tanzania, it was seen at the time as an international trade in displaced people, but it wasn't that at all. It was safer. It was much safer to process people in a nearby country, and then those successful applicants would come and live and start a new life in the UK.
And that's one of the details in this as well, this plan, that if you were successful in your asylum, you could come to the UK, whereas Rwanda will have you.
And they've got leaders in Austria, Germany, Italy and Denmark. They all said they're exploring proposals to process asylum claims outside the EU. So if we're going to have a concerted effort, maybe that's the sort of way to sort of start looking at things in a practical way.
I mean, I suppose it speaks to that point there speaks to Europe trying to come up with some kind of solution to deal with the issues of immigration and asylum. All right, let's take a look if we can. And my director's going to shout at me here, but I want to take a look. We're not going to look at the Sun. We're going to look at the Daily Mirror if we can. Yes, we are. And this, yes, exactly. And these are some Ukrainian refugees, I believe. There we go. Let's take a quick look at that, because this is Ukrainians who are here as part of the relocation scheme, who are now enjoying Christmas, and they celebrate Christmas on the 25th for the first time.
Thank God there are some good people in the world, is the headline on that sort of side. And they're praising, Ukrainian refugees are praising UK families for their support. And part of my extended family, some of my siblings have had Ukrainians with them as well. And it's been a very interesting exchange of views and welcoming people in. And I think until you can personify exactly when you've been uprooted from your home, you don't really appreciate just how much there is a strain. Going back to what you were saying, is you're looking in that sort of side. So I think, thank goodness you got this. As soon as you put some of these glorious pictures on here of the happier faces as a result of what's happening, but without forgetting the horrible tragedy that they're coming from.
And it's also a good reminder, because we need to keep Ukraine on the front pages, we need to keep it in the papers, we need to keep it in people's consciousness, because otherwise we risk that war fatigue creeping in, people wondering why so much money to Ukraine, and it's things like this, pictures like this, that remind you why it's so important.
Yeah. It was a remarkable thing, wasn't it? People opened their homes.
Oh, I love it.
And you said extended family had it?
Yes, absolutely. So part of my extended family have my siblings. One of my siblings has taken on Ukrainian people, which is lovely. A lady and her 2 children. I won't give further details. But a really interesting.
But they're here, they're settled, they're going to school and stuff.
Absolutely. So, which is lovely. So there are good stories there, but behind all of that, there is that tragedy. So I think, especially at this time of year, thank God there are people. But it's also important the news cycle doesn't move on, because you're right. We tend to shine a spotlight on the one thing, and then something else happens and we forget it. Let's not forget it.
And it is interesting that they turn the nose up to the Russian... Because ordinarily in Ukraine, you celebrate Christmas the first week of January. This is the first year that the Ukrainians are celebrating today, indicating they want to celebrate with us rather than...
I think they've been making that point for quite a long time to see this side. All right, Andrew, Amy, thank you very much for that. We're going to have plenty more papers after the break. Do stay with us. Hello there and welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With us are Andrew Eborn and Amy Nicole-Turner. Let's carry on talking through some of the front page. We're going to go to The Guardian now for our final segment. And there's a brilliant picture.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas dip.
Yeah.
What I love at this time of year is so... You would think about that, and occasionally it is incredibly cold.
But they don't look very happy.
Well, some of them don't. Some of them
many wetsuits or like duck fat to kind of protect the skin. That seems to be, I mean, cracking on.
But I have to say, it's a lot warmer today than it has been, hasn't it? It's supposed to be like the hottest Christmas
day
on record.
You don't take it away from them, though. They've done a very brave thing there. It still looks freezing, doesn't it?
I mean, that's the open water as well. Some people have been swimming in the Serpentine in Hyde Park. I think people swim up in the pond as well up in Hampstead Heath. So,
yes, they do.
Like, open water swimming, I guess, at this time of year is very popular.
I grew up on the south coast near a little place called Bracklesham Bay, so we had the sea. And people would run into the sea on New Year's Day. So this looks cold, but I can tell you the sea.
I was brave enough to do that because I can almost see the endorphin rush that she'll get immediately afterwards, but I just can't quite bring myself to
And although they're
it.
probably doing this every year, this year the fact that it's been so warm has been quite strange. I mean, the Met Office records have been broken. It was a bizarrely warm day today.
It was incredible. Well, that's what they're saying, is that it is the hottest, but there's been snow apparently in Scotland.
Yeah, well, do you know how it's decided that it's a white Christmas?
How's that?
Snow has to fall near Met Office weather station.
Oh,
so you've got one on top of a mountain in Scotland, then you get a white Christmas.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good to know for future bets, that you can have your white Christmas. I'm going to bet on the highest possible mountain.
You probably get it guaranteed. I think it should be when you wake up in the morning in London. If you can see snow, then it's a white Christmas.
It is lovely, isn't it?
Don't remember that happening in the last few years.
Oh, we've had a bit of snow.
Maybe I've had 1 or 2 white Christmases in my life, but I've definitely had more along the muggy lines of today.
Yeah, it was uncomfortably warm, wasn't it? And it's
bizarre, isn't it?
I think it bodes not too well for future Christmases of being super warm.
And since records began. Imagine what's going to happen in the summer then if we're hot already on December the 25th.
It's the threat of climate change, and I think that's the thing that people are most concerned about.
Yeah, I think that was good because today King Charles made that a big focal part of his speech. And again, I thought he was throwing a little bit of shade at the government there in his own soft power way to say...
Never complain, never explain. It's interesting.
We need to do something like this. It's also, I think it's the second most important thing to voters at the moment, just after healthcare.
Yeah.
And our government, you would never imagine that was the case. So I think it was good to be reminded of that.
And it's funny the way he reminded us as well, almost as if people have caught up, because you'll know Prince Charles has been talking about environmentalism, as he mentioned, his entire career, his entire life. And people thought in the 80s that he was a bit sort of hippie-ish.
Talking to the trees and the flowers and
talking to his flowers.
What I do love, and people should do about not just recycling their Christmas trees, but looking at the idea of replanting them. And there's now a policy that you can rent Christmas trees if you want to.
Yes, I've seen that.
Which is great. So you can basically rent them. Different companies do this. So you can rent them for the season, then they go back and get planted in the ground and grow a bit further.
Yeah. Well, they're farmed, so I don't feel that bad about cutting them down. Are you a real Christmas tree kind of person?
I've got 4 cats.
Oh, so that means no, I don't know what that means.
It just means any Christmas tree just gets utterly destroyed.
Put them on the tree.
It's
they
so
enjoy
depressing. It is.
So
it really is.
It is green at least.
I just have a new one every year because they just absolutely ruin any one I get.
That is not good circular economy.
No, exactly. I like the idea of the first artificial Christmas trees. Some of them used to be made from goose feathers, and they used to dye them green.
You've got an endless...
I know it all, you know. It's got to be good.
More amazing facts coming from Andrew next time. Thank you, Andrew. Amy, thank you very much.